Hi students, welcome to my channel. In this channel we provide the in-depth knowledge of different programming languages like C, C++, Java, Python, which differentiate you with others. In our series of Java programming language, in the last class we have already discussed what is constructor, what is the use of constructor, or why we are using constructor, or how constructor works. In today's lecture we are going to discuss just opposite to constructor. There is something known as destructor, but this destructor is available in traditional language like C++, but Java doesn't support destructor, but that destructor work is done by a finalize method. That is why the topic of this lecture is object destruction using finalize method. So try to concentrate on each and every line. This is very important because we have creating object. Constructor is called when we destruct an object. A finalize method is called. Let's try to discuss. Here we are having a class called example, in which we are having private int data. What is data here? Data is a data member of type int having private access specifier. What does it mean? It can be only accessible inside the class. Then we are having public example. This is null or zero argument constructor. What is constructor? Constructor is a special kind of member function which invokes implicitly or automatically whenever an object is created. Means under any object oriented programming language, whenever an object is created, a special kind of member function is invoked. That special type of member function is constructor. If we are not inserting any constructor inside the class, the compiler will insert one null constructor or zero argument constructor. And if we are inserting any constructor inside a class, the compiler will not insert any constructor. It is a duty of programmer to insert all the constructor inside a class, because it's a rule that whenever an object is created, constructor must be invoked. If you are not putting any constructor inside a class, the compiler will insert one null constructor or zero argument constructor. We are displaying one message system.out.println inside the constructor. Then we are writing protected void finalize throws throwable. Now what is throws throwable? It's a part of exception handling. Today we are not going to discuss. You have to write throws throwable. What is throwable? Throwable is a class which is derived from the exception class. So we are not discussing in that. We are calling super.finalize, as we have already discussed in the previous class. What is super? Super is a keyword to call the member function with the same name from the base class. So super.finalize. Now what is the base class of example? Make it very clear in your mind whether it's a predefined class or a user defined class. Every class is derived from the object class. तो object नाम की भी एक class है. Because what is Java? Java is a pure object oriented programming language. What does it mean? कि in Java, if you talk about anything, it's an object. Why? Because the first line you are writing class name, opening brace and closing brace. Means in Java everything should be inside a class. तो क्लास को यूज करने के लिए आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? You have to create an object. So every class should have the properties of the object. So how you can have the properties of the object? By inheriting the object class. So in Java, whether it's a predefined class and a user defined class, because when you write protected void finalize super.finalize, the first question that arises in your mind is, sir, here we are not extending any class in the example class. So how we can write super.finalize to clear that statement? This example class is extending from extends object. Now if we are not writing extends object, the compiler automatically write extends object, because in Java everything is an object. And if we are saying that this is an object, suppose if I am saying that this is a chair, so why we are saying this is a chair? Because it is having the properties of a chair. If I am saying that this is a mouse, why we are saying this is a mouse? Because it is having the property of a mouse. Same thing if I am saying that example is an object or example is a class. In Java everything is an object. So it must derive from an object class. So in Java, make it very clear in your mind. In Java, whether it's a predefined class or a user defined class, every class is derived from the object class, and this finalize method is an object of a this finalize method is a method of object class which is overridden. There is a difference between overriding and overloading. So this is an example of what? This is an example of overriding. In overriding, the base class and the derived class having two member function with the same prototype or a signature. Whereas in case of function overloading, first requirement is prototype must be different. So if you want to call a finalize method of the base class in a finalize method of the example class, so if I write like this, if I write only finalize, then what happened? This is an example of recursion, a function calling itself. It will go into infinite loop. But what I want to call the finalize method of which class? Object class. So I have to write super. What is super? Super is a keyword, super.finalize. So it will call the finalize method of the super class, and the super class of the example class is an object class. Why? Because every class is derived from the object class. If we are not extending any class, the compiler automatically insert one object class in example class. And like we have discussed in C++, if some of your students have already learned C++, in C++, whenever an object is created, a special type of member function called constructor is invoked. Same thing is applicable in Java also. Whenever an object is created in Java, a special kind of member function called constructor is invoked. But if we talk about destructor in C++, a special type of member function called destructor is automatically invoked whenever an object is destroyed. And when an object is destroyed, when it goes out of the scope. Because lifecycle depend upon what? The storage classes that we have already learned in this C. So when the object goes out of the scope, that object dies and it calls the destructor function of that class. But in Java, there is something known as garbage collector. What is garbage collector? It's a program which run under JVM. What Java says, क्योंकि इट्स ए ह्यूमन नेचर, जब जरूरत होती है तब आदमी काम कर लेता है, बट वंस दी जरूरत खत्म तो इंसान उसको भूल जाता है. सेम थिंग people are facing problem कि when you want to store some data, you create an object or you allocate the memory, but once your work is finished, you forget to deallocate that memory. So what Java says, you allocate memory how much you want. Deallocation is my duty. तो उन्होंने एक प्रोग्राम लिख के डाल दिया किसके अंदर, JVM के अंदर, दैट इज नोन एज गार्बेज कलेक्टर. वो कुछ देर में मेमोरी में घूमता है. अगर वो देखता है कि इस लोकेशन को कोई भी रेफर नहीं कर रहा है, no reference is referring to that object is released and returned back to the operating system. And before releasing that object, a finalize method of that object is implicitly invoked. तो जो काम डिस्ट्रक्टर इन C++ कर रहा था, वही काम फाइनलाइज इन जावा कर रहा है. बिकॉज इट इज गिविंग, नो डाउट वो नहीं भी देते तो भी चलता, बट देयर आर सर्टेन कंडीशंस. उन्होंने बोला कि ठीक है, प्रोग्रामर को भी कुछ दो कि अगर प्रोग्रामर कोई कोड एग्जीक्यूट करना चाहता, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू आर वर्किंग विद फाइल हैंडलिंग और इफ यू आर वर्किंग विद डेटाबेस और इफ यू आर वर्किंग विद नेटवर्क, तो वी हैव टू close that connection before exiting the program. That code can be written inside the finalize class. Suppose we are exiting from the program, we have to close the file that is open. कॉमन सेंस वाली बात है ना कि कोई भी एप्लीकेशन के अंदर कोई फाइल ओपन है, तो इफ यू आर एग्जिटिंग फ्रॉम दैट प्रोग्राम, यू वांट टू क्लोज दैट फाइल. एंड इफ एनी एप्लीकेशन इज कनेक्टेड टू द डेटाबेस एंड इफ यू वांट टू एग्जिट फ्रॉम दैट प्रोग्राम, what common sense says? You should disconnect that connection with the database, and that can be done inside the finalize. So usually finalize method is used to clean up operations, is used for cleanup operations like closing the file, because deallocation is taken care by garbage collector. Closing the file, disconnecting the database, disconnecting the network connections, and all these cleanup operations are taken care by finalize method. So you can write this code inside the finalize method. Means what moral of the story is कि whenever an object is created, a special kind of member function called constructor is invoked, and whenever an object is destroyed, a special type of function called finalize is or implicitly invoked. सुपर में s small आएगा. Then we are having public class DSC, public static void main string str, example e is equal to new example. New example means we are creating an object, and when I write example is equal to new example, constructor is invoked, and as the control goes out of this block, this variable dies or this object dies, and a finalize method of the example class will be invoked. If you are not overriding, then object class finalize method will be invoked. So when an object is created using the new keyword, memory is allocated for it. There is no need to free the memory because this is taken care by JVM. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. In traditional languages like C and C++, we have to free this memory explicitly with the delete operator or a free method, but in Java it has a program called garbage collector which run periodically. When it runs, it checks for objects that are no longer being referred by a reference. It reclaims the memory location and returns back to the operating system. So what we can say, in Java there is no need to deallocate the memory which is allocated by the new operator. Why? Because it is taken care by the garbage collector. What is garbage collector? It's a program which runs under JVM, which runs periodically. When it runs, it checks for the objects that are no longer being referred by any reference. It reclaims the memory and return back to the operating system. There are some cleanup operations that we have to perform just before the object goes out of the scope, like closing a file, terminating the network connection, terminating the database connection. These can be done in the finalize method that we have to override in our class. Finalize method is called by the garbage collector just before reclaiming the object. Means it works exactly like a destructor, but in Java these destructors are not available. They have given a method called finalize which is implicitly invoked by the garbage collector just before reclaiming the object. So this is how finalize is invoked. So we have to override that method. If we are not overriding, then superclass means object class of this example class finalize method will be invoked. Okay, getting my point? Now in the above program, when the object referred by E gets created, the constructor gets called when control goes out of the main function. The object is no longer used. When the garbage collector finds this, it calls the finalize method of the example class. Finalize method does not receive any parameter like destructors. Finalize method does not receive any parameter nor does return any value like constructors also. Why? Because where you will return the value, from where the function call is invoked, and here finalize method is implicitly called. They cannot be called explicitly, so returning a value would not make any sense. That is why what we have written, when the garbage collector finds this, it calls the finalize method of the example class. Finalize method does not receive any parameter nor does it return any value. The finalize method cannot be called explicitly. Also, we should not declare it public. The finalize method are always declared as protected. Okay, they cannot be declared as public. In finalize method, we have simply called the base class finalize. In Java, every class, whether it's a user defined class or a predefined class, every class is derived from the object class that we have already discussed just few minutes before. So in Java, every class is derived from the object class. So by seeing this, what we can say, in Java everything is like an object, because everything is derived from an object, means every class is having the properties of an object. that we will see in inheritance chapter. Now finalize method uses. Where we can use finalize method? In those program in which object uses files, network or database connection. In those program in which object uses files, network and database connection, finalize method should be perform operations like closing a file, terminate the network connection, terminate the database connection and all other cleanup operation or work. Means any type of cleanup operation if you want to perform, that can be performed in the finalize method, like closing a file, terminate the network connection, terminate the database connection, etc., etc. Because this is the last method which is invoked implicitly when object gets destroyed. So this is how destructor, or you can say the finalize method in Java language works. I think we should stop here. If any doubt, you can ask me in the comment box. I will try to reply within 24 hours. Okay. So if you like the content of this channel, please like, share and subscribe as much you can. It motivates us. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.